Hi friends and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm making an Ukrainian-style 100% rye sourdough bread with seeds. This bread is very close to my heart because I grew up in Ukraine, where bread is more than just something we put on the table. Bread is part of everyday life, family meals, holidays and traditions. Rye bread especially has that deep old world flavor that reminds me of home. Hearty, slightly tangy, earthy and full of character. This is not a light and fluffy white bread. Rye bread is different. It has moist, dense crumb, a rich aroma, and a flavor that becomes even better the next day. The process starts the night before, but it is very easy to follow, so let's get started. The night before baking, I prepare three things: the seeds, the malt mixture, and the rye starter. First, I prepare the seeds. For this bread, I use 50 grams of pumpkin seeds, 50 grams of flax seeds, and 50 grams of sunflower seeds, 150 grams of seeds total. I add the seeds to a bowl and pour 150 grams of boiling water over them. Then I stir everything together and set it aside. This step softens the seeds and helps keep the bread moist after baking. Next, I prepare the malt mixture. This step is optional, but I really recommend it because malt gives rye bread a deeper color, a richer flavor, and that classic rye bread aroma. If you're using dry rye malt, mix 25 grams of dry malt with 25 grams of boiling water. Stir it together and set it aside. And last, I prepare the rice starter. I do not keep a rice starter all the time, so for this recipe I make one from my regular sourdough starter. In a clean jar I add 30 grams of active sourdough starter, 120 grams of whole grain rye flour, and 120 grams of water. Then I mix everything together until there are no dry spots left. Rye starter looks different from wheat starter. It is thicker, stickier, and more like a paste. It will not be stretchy, and that is completely normal. I cover the jar loosely and leave it at about 76°F overnight for around 10 hours. Now I cover the seeds and the malt mixture. Set everything aside and we will come back the next day. The next morning, everything is ready to mix the dough. The seeds have absorbed the water and look soft, and the rye starter should look active, bubbly, and doubled in size. Now take a large bowl and add 350 grams of water, 30 grams of brown sugar or honey, 12 grams of salt, and 4 grams of ground coriander. The coriander is optional, but I really recommend it because it gives the bread a beautiful warm aroma. Now mix everything together until the salt and sugar are fully dissolved. Next, add all the rye sourdough starter that we prepared the night before. Mix it well until the starter is mostly dissolved in the water. I do recommend using a stand mixer for this recipe because the rye dough is very sticky and can be tiring to mix by hand. But today I'm mixing it by hand to show you that it's still possible. Now add the malt mixture if using and the soaked seeds. Then mix everything together again. Next, add 480 grams of rye flour in 2 additions. Mix well after each addition until there are no dry spots left. This can take a little time, and this is where a stand mixer is very helpful. Rye dough is very different from wheat dough. It does not become smooth and elastic because rye do not have the same gluten structure, so do not wait for a stretchy dough. The dough should look thick, sticky, and uniform. It will be more like a paste than a regular bread dough, and that is exactly what we want. After that, cover the dough and let it rest for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, the dough will look a little more hydrated and easier to work with. Now mix it one more time for a few minutes. You do not knead it like a wheat dough. Just make sure everything is evenly combined. Then smooth the top with a wet spatula. This will make it easier to see how much the dough rises. Now cover the bowl and let the dough rise in a warm place. For a rye bread, warmth is very important. Keep the dough around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It can be a little warmer, but try not to let it get too hot. I keep mine in my smart oven on the proof setting, but you can also use your oven with the light on or place the bowl inside the microwave with the door closed. Let it rise for about 1.5 to 2 hours. The dough will not double like regular wheat sourdough. Instead, look for small bubbles on the surface and slightly puffed texture. After the first rise, prepare your bread pan. I will leave a link to the pan I used in the description. Lightly grease the pan so the bread is easier to remove after baking. I like to use avocado oil for this. Now transfer all of the dough right into the pan. Because rye dough is very sticky, wet your hands or use a wet spatula. This makes the dough much easier to handle. Gently spread the dough out and smooth the top with a wet spatula, so the surface is nice and even. Now cover the pan with plastic wrap, not a lid, because the dough will rise a little above the pan. Place it back in a warm spot for the final proof. This final proof usually takes about 45 minutes to 1 hour. The dough should rise a little, look slightly puffed, and you should see small bubbles on the surface. When the dough looks bubbly and gently risen, it's ready to bake. Now preheat your oven to 430 degrees Fahrenheit. Carefully remove the plastic wrap. If needed, smooth the surface with a wet spatula. Then slightly wet the top of the bread and sprinkle it with extra seeds. After that, spray the top with water. This helps the crust bake nicely. Now place the pan into the hot oven. Bake the bread for about 50 minutes. The baking time can be a little different depending on your oven and the size of your pan. The best way to check is with a thermometer. The inside of the bread should reach about 208 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. When the bread is done, remove it from the oven and let it sit in the pan for a few minutes until it is cool enough to handle. Then carefully run a knife around the sides of the pan. Remove the bread and place it on a cooling rack. You might notice that the sides look a little wet, almost like they are underbaked. This is normal for rye bread baked in a pan because the pan holds in a lot of moisture. As the bread cools and rests, the crumb will continue to set and the texture will become much better. And now comes to the hardest part. Do not slice it right away. Rye bread needs time to rest and set inside. If you cut it too soon, the crumb can feel very sticky. Let the bread cool completely. Then wrap it in a towel and let it rest for at least 8 to 12 hours or overnight. The next day, the bread is ready to slice. You can see the crust is firm and the bread has had enough time to fully set inside. Use a sharp bread knife and slice it slowly. The inside should be soft, slightly moist and full of seeds. It should not be dry or fluffy, and that is what makes the rye bread so special. I hope you try this Ukrainian-style rye sourdough bread in your kitchen. Thank you so much for baking with me today. If you enjoyed this recipe, leave a comment and tell me how it turned out, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy baking, my friends!